Hi, this is George, and you're watching The Return of the King channel. The appearance of Blood Moon Tetrads, 4 blood moons in a row, with no partial eclipses appearing in between, and appearing near or on Jewish feast days, have been linked to significant events surrounding the nation of Israel. Blood Moon Tetrads have appeared just after the nation of Israel was reborn in 1948. And then again surrounding the Six-Day War in June of 1967. In that war, Israel captured and annexed East Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. Both are necessary elements for Christ's return. And in the last few days, I've been using Grok AI, artificial intelligence, to help me with my research. And in that use, it alerted me to this Blood Moon Tetrad surrounding Christ's second coming. This is extremely exciting and adds to the ever-increasing likelihood that Christ will return in 2032 to begin his rule as king for the next 1,000 years. The next Blood Moon Tetrad to appear is in 2043 and 44, about 11 years after Christ's return. The final countdown to the Rapture, Tribulation, and Christ's return to rule on earth begins with the 2014 and 15 Blood Moon Tetrad. When we lay out all the total eclipses, both lunar and solar, we find they can be placed into 3 groups. This first group of eclipses, anchored by the Revelation 12 sign and the Blood Moon Tetrad, occur in constellations having to do with the Rapture. The second set in constellations having to do with the Tribulation. And this third and last set with our escape from the dragon. This last eclipse in this series occurs over Jerusalem. It occurs above the tail of the dragon. The prophet Joel tells us, "The sun shall be turned to darkness, and the moon to blood, before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes." The tribulation in the Old Testament is known as the time of Jacob's trouble. Israel's trouble, not the church's. The timing and location of this last blood moon in both the heavens and on the earth is perfect for the tribulation to start this fall. It appears over Israel and Jerusalem, the epicenter of the tribulation, the time of Jacob's trouble, Israel's trouble. Jewish rabbis, both ancient and today's, believe blood moons represent judgment coming to Israel. I find that very interesting because blood moons represent the atonement of Christ. They have rejected Christ and therefore are not protected from the coming judgment. This is a timeline of key events, starting with the Rapture and ending with Christ's return in the midst of the Blood Moon Tetrad. The next feast to be fulfilled is the Feast of Trumpets. That will be fulfilled by the Rapture. Then 7 years later, Christ will return to rule as king on Yom Kippur, which begins at sunset on September 15th and ends at sunset September 16th. The dates I'm using for the feast days come from TorahCalendar.com, the same Jewish calendar that was used at the time of Christ. Today's Jewish calendar has the dates just 1 day earlier. With Christ returning on Yom Kippur 2032, the midpoint of the tribulation would be on April 5th, 2029. The eclipse over Luxor, Egypt would then appear 612 days prior to the midpoint of the tribulation, and 620 days prior to the arrival of the asteroid Apophis, named after the Egyptian god of chaos and destruction. It will make its closest approach to Earth on Friday, April 13th, 2029. Just 8 to 9 days after the Antichrist defiles a temple and declares himself to be God and demands to be worshipped as such. Jewish days begin at sunset. From sunset on April 4th to Apophis' arrival on Friday, April 13th, 2029, it would be 9 days. The number 9 in the Bible is the number of finality or judgment. The second half of the tribulation is known as the Great Tribulation. It's characterized by escalating divine judgments. It's the final judgment of mankind before Christ returns. Apophis will pass within less than 20,000 miles of Earth. If Apophis is the wormwood of Revelation, It wouldn't take much of a nudge from God to change its trajectory to impact the earth. Tom Horn, in his book, The Messenger, describes awakening in a hyperdimensional reality after going to bed one evening in April of 2019. In this vision, he sees what appears to be a fiery serpent headed towards the earth. As his viewpoint shifts, he realizes it's a very large rock barreling straight at the earth. He then finds himself on a tall hill or mountain, surrounded by thousands of people, terrified and running for their lives. It impacts the Pacific Ocean, creating a massive tsunami hundreds of feet into the air. He then goes on in greater detail to describe what happens to the Earth in the weeks following the impact. Massive destruction over the entire planet. He then awakens and hears what seems like an audible voice. It utters a single word, Apophis. At the time of this vision, he knows nothing of Apophis. He then goes on to research the asteroid Apophis, and the results of that investigation are published in several books, one of them being The Messenger you see here. The tribulation consists of two 1,260-day periods. That's 2,520 days. The tribulation would then start on October 23, 2025, with the enforcement of the covenant with the many as described in the book of Daniel. That would give the world a 30-day window to recover somewhat from the shock of millions of people disappearing. On June 1st, 2030, a ring of fire eclipse will appear over the 7 churches found in the book of Revelation. It appears 15 days, 3 months, and 2 years prior to Christ's return as king on Yom Kippur, September 16th, 2032. Contained within the number is the number 153, the 153 fish. The number 153 is associated with Pentecost. On God's original calendar, Pentecost was always on the 15th day of the 3rd month, the number 153. The church was born on Pentecost, and when Christ returns to rule on earth, we will come to earth with him, along with the armies of heaven, bringing final judgment to the world. This ring of fire eclipse is a harbinger of the judgment to come. In the book of Daniel, there's a 1,290-day time period, from the midpoint of the tribulation to 30 days after Christ's return. The 1290 and 30-day count is mirrored if we count to September 23rd. I don't know if that means anything, but it's interesting nonetheless. About 144 days prior to Christ's return, April 25th, 2032, the first blood moon of the Tetrad appears. The first blood moon occurs in the constellation of Virgo, the seed of the woman, Christ coming to crush the head of the serpent. 130 days prior to Christ's return, this ring of fire eclipse appears. Where this eclipse occurs in the heavens tells of who is bringing the judgment and who is on the receiving end of that judgment. This ring of fire eclipse occurs above the head of the dragon and between the constellations of Christ the Judge and Aries, which in Hebrew is Taleh, which means the Lamb. Just below the eclipse is the bright morning star, Jesus. Both symbols of the dragon, Satan and Mars, are in the constellation of Christ the Judge. Saturn, symbolic of Satan's kingdom, is about to be run through by the horns of Christ the Judge, as is Mars, another symbol of the red dragon. In Greek, Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega, which in Hebrew would be the Aleph and the Tav. In the original Hebrew, the Aleph was the picture of an ox. Taurus is an ox, Christ the Judge. In 130 days, the dragon in the sea is about to meet his demise. In that day, the Lord, with his hard and great and strong sword, will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, Leviathan, the twisting serpent, and he will slay the dragon that is in the sea. The story in the heavens on the day Christ returns, which begins at sunset on September 15th, is a picture-perfect match to the story of Christ's return found in Revelation chapter 19, starting with verse 11. Here's a quick overview. Jupiter from the Revelation 12 sign, representing Christ and the church, is in the constellation of the rider of the white horse. We will be coming with Christ at his return. The moon representing Messiah is in the constellation of the Atonement. The bright morning star is in the womb of Virgo, Jesus, the seed of the Virgin, coming to crush the head of the serpent. Venus is next to Spica. Spica represents a harvest. There's a harvest coming, separating the sheep from the goats, some going to heaven, some to hell. Revelation chapter 19, verses 17 and 18, speaks of an angel in the sun, calling the birds of the air to come and feast on those who have been killed by Christ. It's called the Great Supper of God. Here's the sun, here's the symbol of the angel, Mercury. Here are the birds, Corvus, who are going to feed on the defeated armies of Satan, Hydra the serpent, a symbol of the devil, and then Crater, the cup of God's wrath. This is the scene in the heavens at sunrise the next morning. Mars, another symbol of the red dragon, is in the leg area of Leo, Christ, the lion of the tribe of Judah. According to Joseph Zeiss in his book, The Gospel and the Stars, the scene you see here between the lion and the snake is the story of Genesis 3:15, the seed of the woman, Jesus, the lion of the tribe of Judah, crushing the head of the serpent. The imagery here is that of the lion about to pounce on the head of the snake. And there's Mars right there, a symbol of the red dragon, on the day Christ will crush the head of the serpent, the red dragon. And then finally Saturn, another symbol of Satan's kingdom, is directly in front of the horns of Taurus, a raging bull charging at Satan and his kingdom, impaling him and his kingdom on his horns. The story doesn't get any better than this. The initial countdown to Christ's return began when the nation of Israel was reborn in May of 1948. The rebirth of Israel was followed by the Blood Moon Tetrad of 1949 and 1950. Blood moons represent the atonement of Christ, the shedding of his blood on the cross to pay the price for our sins. Those protected by the blood of Christ, Christians, will not experience the wrath of the Lamb. They will be taken out, raptured, prior to the start of the 7-year tribulation. The tribulation is the time of Jacob's trouble, Israel's trouble, not the church's. The Jewish nation of Israel has rejected Christ and the free gift of salvation. They will go through the tribulation, and by the end of the tribulation, this prophecy, found in the book of Zechariah, chapter 12, verse 10, will be fulfilled. And I will pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and pleas for mercy, so that when they look on me, on him whom they have pierced, they shall mourn for him, as one mourns for an only child, and weep bitterly over him, as one weeps over a firstborn. This prophecy is repeated in Revelation chapter 1, verse 7. Behold, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, and all the tribes of the earth will wail on account of him. Even so, amen. The story of Christ's return began with the Blood Moon Tetrad of 1949 and 1950, just after the birth of Israel. And the story finishes with Christ's return in the midst of the Blood Moon Tetrad of 2032 and 2033, with the nation of Israel recognizing the one whom they had pierced as their king.